Hello there, and welcome to the Meaningful Stitch. Now, usually I'd be telling you all about what I've been working on, what I've finished, all of my knitting over the past couple of weeks, but instead I've decided to create a special episode featuring all of these lovelies. So if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that I shared a photograph yesterday of my wall of shawls, or the shawl wall. Basically, I had a joiner, like a handyman, come round yesterday and he fixed a rod that goes horizontally across my bedroom wall so that I could hang up all of these beautiful shawls. And having done so, getting all of these shawls out from underneath the bed where I've been storing them so that I could have them displayed in this beautiful rainbow of colour and texture, that I decided that maybe it would be a good idea to record an episode and share all of these beautiful shawls with you. They have been knitted, all of them apart from one, and I will get to that shortly, have been knitted over the last 5 years or so. They are in a variety of fibres, so we have some woolly wools, we have some alpaca, we have some mohair, we have silk, we have camel, we have yak. So we have lots and lots of different fibres and lots, as you can see, lots of different colours. I will apologise for any creaking that you might hear. I am sitting in my bedroom and my bedroom has the world's squeakiest floorboards. So every time I move on the chair, it makes the floorboards squeak. So I will try and sit really still. And basically, I'm just going to work my way through this wall of shawls and just talk to you a little bit about each one of them in turn, about who designed them, why I chose them, what colour, about the colour choices that I made, and yeah. So, are you ready? Very first one, I'm going to have to reach all the way back here for this one here. And it is this one. This is the Birds of a Feather shawl by Andrea Mowry. It is knitted in La Bien-Aimée Helix and their Kid Silk. This was a very special project because my mum gifted me this yarn. She ordered the skeins for herself and then she wound off half of the skeins and sent the skeins to me and with a full skein of the mohair. So then we each had 3 different colours, and if I can remember, this was a while ago, I think this red is called Kitsune, and I think I know the yellow is called Goldenrod, and I cannot for the life of me remember what colour this this orangey one was, whether it could be something like cognac, but the beautiful shining, you can absolutely see it glowing here, mohair silk is the complementary, is the same colorway but just on a different base. So in the original pattern you are using 2 colors, so 1 color for your solid and 1 color for your mohair, but we decided that we were going to each knit ourselves one of these shawls, but we weren't going to discuss the order that we used the colours in. So our shawls are a little bit, my mum's shawl is a little bit different from mine, but we are using exactly the same yarn from the same skein, just in a slightly different order. So you can see mine. So I love this shawl. It feels very glamorous, I think, because of this high silk content in the mohair. It looks, it's absolutely gleaming and glowing. It is very easy to wear because it's so light. So much of this shawl is mohair, so it is a very light but very warm shawl. You can wrap it around your neck a couple of times as well, which I will just show you here, so that it takes on the appearance, I suppose, more of a scarf. But there are a variety of ways to wear shawls, in which we will continue to explore as we go along. But there we go. That is the Birds of a Feather shawl, and oh, Well, now I've put it on, I kind of don't want to take it off again. So there we go. I love this shawl. I used up some of my leftovers in a little cute hat. And I think that's a nice thing to do actually with our garments or our shawls, if we have leftovers, to use them up in a different design, but one that we can maybe wear with it. So, and that's what I do. So there we go. That's the Birds of a Feather shawl by Drea Renee Knits, who is Andrea Mowry, and it's beautiful. It's in La Bien Aimée yarn. Okay, so what do we do with these now that we've shown them? I'm just going to throw them onto the bed. I'm going to have a big pile by the end of this. So, reaching further back, what's the next one? Oh, I think we've dropped a few, so I'm going to have to pick those up off the floor shortly. But the next one I'm going to show you is this beautiful lace shawl. This is in Yakety Yak, which is a yak and merino, I think, and is it yak, merino and silk base from Ginger Twist. This is a design by Annie Rowden, who goes by Annie Claire on Instagram, and this shawl is called Tales of the Isles of Purbeck. I think it was originally a mystery shawl. I did not knit it as a mystery shawl. I bought it as a complete pattern. And really, kind of looking at it, I'm not entirely sure where the mystery was, because it all kind of looks like the same stitch pattern that's being repeated. That said, every time I look at this, I just absolutely love it. It is, we start of course in the centre here with a garter tab, which is a really common way to start your shawls. It looks like I have slipped, I've done my usual, which is to slip the last stitch of every row to create a smooth edge. And it's got the central column, so we're creating our increases, and so it's quite a basic triangle shape. And what really makes this is the lace and of course the yarn. So you can wear it just off to one side. There's the spine of the, there we go. And this is just so beautiful. This yarn was such fun to work with. My lovely friend Jen gave me this yarn for my 40th birthday, and it is so joyful to knit with, although I have to say I do remember that it was not fun to cake up at all, because it is such a bouncy yarn. I don't know whether that's the yak. Yak's particularly bouncy, maybe. But yes, so this was a pain in the neck to cake up off the skein, but it was a complete delight to knit. It was so much fun, and this lace pattern, as I say, is so effective. I am wearing a very plain black dress so that I can really kind of showcase the shawls that you see, but I think it really goes well when you've got a contrasting colour that's got lace, so that you can see the black underneath and it really pops. So there we go. This is the Tales of the Isle of Purbeck by Annie Rowden in Ginger Twist Yakety Yak, and this is the undyed colourway. The undyed, I think, is just such an interesting colour, because it really is this kind of like bronzy, almost, and with the sheen on it, it takes on quite a metallic quality. But there we go, it's absolutely stunning. Do you know, I think sometimes some lace can look a little bit dated, but I think this looks very contemporary, whilst also reminding me a little bit of, giving me some Art Deco vibes as well. Maybe it's giving that to you too, but I think it is an exceptionally beautiful shawl. I tend to wear this, in fact, really into the kind of weather that we're coming into now. When it starts to warm up a little bit, and some of the woolier wools and the heavier shawls begin to feel a little bit too warm, but I do like to have something round my neck. I wear shawls. I would say I wear shawls every day. So for those people who say that, shawls are a bit useless and, why do you knit so many? I absolutely love wearing a shawl. I do wear shawls every day. For me, they really allow me to play with colour. They allow me to play with different stitches, so it's fun to knit. But really, for wearing, it's about being able to explore whatever colour you feel most drawn to that particular day. And I have this really comforting sense of being held. My shawls have a very strong sense of, I suppose, of sanctuary. You'll not be surprised to know that I think I was a child who had a comfort blanket. So maybe these are just my grown-up comfort blankets. I don't know. They're a lot more glamorous than what I had before. But I just feel so held whenever I wear them, and making them for myself feels like a real act of self-care and of self-love. And it's a real source of joy for me, which is why we've ended up with quite so many. So anyway, I wear shawls all the time, and I do wear them through the spring and through the summer. I'll share with you another couple of spring summer ones, but this is one of those. So it hasn't had a lot of wear over the last few months, 6 months, because I've been wearing my heavier weight shawls, but it's definitely going to be coming back into rotation. Okay, I'm going to go and get these two that have dropped onto the floor. Excuse the creaking floorboards. Okay, so I have another lace one for you here. This is a beautiful shawl. Partially because of the design and partially because of the yarn. I've never seen yarn like this. It is a proper metallic gold. Can you see that? This is Skein Queen's Oasis lace, and it's a camel silk blend. The camel yarn, camel fibre is quite brown, and the silk of course brings the sheen. So when you're dyeing on top of that, it's creating this really amazing, beautiful yarn. I picked this up at the first Edinburgh Yarn Festival that I went to, and it was my first purchase. Perhaps not surprisingly, it just absolutely glows. So this pattern is the Icarus, and it's by Miriam Felton. So it's a very easy lace pattern. So if you are intimidated by lace shawls, but you really like the look of them, then this is actually a really good option. Again, it's that simple, straightforward triangle shawl shape. So you have your increases happening down the centre and at either side. When I knitted this, I didn't slip. This is an earlier knitter, so I didn't slip the stitches. So I've got my garter bumps along the edge, but it'll give you an idea of what it's not majorly detractive of the shawl overall, but it is just something I'm aware of. So you are creating these kind of almost like ladders, and so it's the same pattern, repeated until you get to the border, and then you have these beautiful, looks like the ends of feathers. And of course Icarus is from the Greek myth about the boy and his father who made the wings on a frame and then flew too high, too close to the sun, and the sun melted the wax that was holding the frame together. So this is the Icarus shawl, and I will show it to you on. I knitted this for going to London. I don't go to London very often, and certainly in the last few years haven't been anywhere. So, but this was the last time I went down to London, and we had bought tickets to see Don Juan with David Tennant in it at the theatre in the West End, and we had, because we don't go down. We've probably been down maybe twice in the last 20 years. So because we don't go down very often, we decided to make a real big deal of it, and we booked ourselves a box. So we had box seats to see Don Juan, and I wore this incredibly beautiful shawl. So I think it's really lovely to have pieces that you connect with particular memories that you can kind of pull on every time you wear it. So this is going to be the shawl that I think of when I think of my London trip, and how incredibly special that trip was, and the wonderful decadent experience of having box seats at the West End. So there we go. This is the Icarus shawl by Miriam Felton in Oasis lace, which I'm not sure is a base they're doing anymore, and it's Skein Queen. So there we go. It didn't actually, this one didn't have a colourway. I'm sure we'd just call it gold. I think we could get away with that. But there we go. That's another summer shawl. So again, it's a quite lightweight one, but because of the camel fibre content, and actually the silk content is actually quite a warm one. So even although it's in this lace weight yarn, and it feels very light. I mean, this is less than 800 meters, so it's less than 100 grams. But it's it can be one of those pieces that really helps you out when you're shopping or you're out and about in the summertime and it's warm outside, but the moment you go into a shop, they're blasting the air conditioner and it's freezing. This is a really good one to have on you when that happens. Another summer shawl is this is a summer shawl for me, and it is a heavier weight summer shawl. So I do live in Scotland, where we get some hot days. We don't ever get above, I would say, 30 degrees. That I can't remember any time I was ever getting even close to that. But we do get some warmer moments. But that means that this, let me see if I've got this right the way around. No, this is the right way around. This is a DK weight shawl, so it is a little bit heavier, but it is knitted in pure silk. So this is BC Garn's soft silk. So it's not a shiny silk, it's a matte silk. That's pretty true to colour there. And this is the Hipster shawl by Hoki Locatelli. It's got these fabulous tassels on it. I actually followed a project notes that somebody put up about these tassels, because I think these tassels are a little shorter and plumper than the ones in the original pattern, but I really like this, and then I copied that for some other shawls that I then knitted in the future. So there we go. This is a wonderful, easy pattern. Again, this used DK, although she has brought out, I think, a Hipster Light, which just uses one skein of fingering weight. But this is the heavier weight DK. I think the original pattern used Mayak, which is an absolutely glorious, beautiful yarn. And maybe one day I will I will treat myself to some, but this is a really lovely alternative, and it was much more affordable. It's BC Garn Soft Silk DK. I picked it up from the local yarn shop in Cognac that I've mentioned on my podcast before, which is called My Little My. And I picked this up when I was on holiday with staying with my parents there, and I spent my holiday making this beautiful shawl and then wearing it with some of my beautiful linen pieces that I picked up in the French markets. So there we go. It's a beautiful pattern. It's got these cross stitches, as you can see, which you might recognise from, well, actually you can see some here, from Shawlography. This was the first time I think I had, oh no, I think it was the second time, because I did another shawl as a gift for somebody. So this is probably the second time I'd done that. And then it has this textured pattern, which is not, you can kind of see it, it's not super noticeable, well, not in this yarn anyway. And then some garter sections, and then it repeats. And then you finish it off with your tassels. So again, a very easy piece to wear. You can wear it, with holding the center to the front and bringing the tails around either side, and then you can really see these cute little tassels like that. Or I certainly find this helps me out a lot when particularly if I am burning, because I only have to really sit out in the sun for about 5 minutes before I burn, which is part of the problem of having this very pale Scottish skin that doesn't see the sunlight very often. But yes, I can also, it's also one of these pieces that you can just throw over your shoulders, and then it'll protect me a little bit, obviously. Not where the holes open up, but it'll protect me a little bit from the sun. So anything in a pinch. So there we go. And you can drape it over. It's a really lovely, very easy shawl to wear. And like I say, this is another one of my summer ones. I think mostly because of the type of fibre that I've knitted it up in. This soft silk feels very lovely to wear in the summer. So there we go. This is the Hipster Shawl by Hoki Locatelli. Wow, we're getting through them. Not very quickly, but we are. Okay, what's next? Oh, okay, so the next one is this, and it is the Garter Goodness Shawl by Stephen West. And this was the first time I ever did fading. So, from what I can remember, this yarn is lichen and lace. And it's in 2 shades of grey. I think it was called Silver Fox and Pewter. And then, I'm holding it the wrong way around, there we go. And then I had this variegated grey and green that I think might be Dye Ninja. And then I finished it off with this green here, this more solid tonal green, which is Poison Ivy, which was a Woolen Vine single ply. So this is all single ply mohair, all superwash. It's very drapey. It is very lovely. I'm really pleased with the fade that I got on it. The effect that I wanted was, if you go out on some walks in Scotland, you'll sometimes see these very large quartz boulders, and they have like green moss creeping up the edges, and that's really what I was imagining with this particular fade, was this quartz boulder and this green moss creeping up the sides of it. So it felt like a very organic piece, and I think that's also contributed by the shape, which you can't really see because I'm too close to the camera. But basically, you start with this point here, and then you create a increase. So you're increasing down this row here, and you're increasing here. And then after a little while, you add an extra increase. And then after a little while, you add an extra increase, etc., etc. And it creates this wonderful shape, which actually reminds me a little bit of like a ginkgo leaf. I have seen some people not liking this pointy bit at the top, and so there are some projects I think that will give you notes on how to avoid the pointy bit at the top. However, I really like the pointy bit at the top because I will show you. I always wear this piece like this, which is to take the 2 ends, to pass them over the back of my neck, bring down the 2 ends, and then pull it up. So this is what it looks like. And this pointy bit at the top, what it does is it creates, there you go, it creates, I just pop it down the back there, and it creates a little bit of extra fabric around my throat, which is exactly where I would want it. If I was out in the cold and it was blowing a gale, I would want a little bit of extra fabric just around there. So it's a really interesting example of a shawl shape that may not make sense to you when you see it laid flat, but actually when you wear it, it makes absolute sense. And I would say that's the same for the shape of the shawl too, because it's actually a very flattering shape to wear. So I've got the fade really really showcased here, coming up towards the the paler yarns. So this is Garter Goodness by Stephen West. It is a 4 skein project. Although, if you wanted to make a smaller one, then you could use less yarn. Or if you wanted to do it in DK, you could do it in DK. I know a lot of people can sometimes feel put off by Stephen West patterns. I don't personally, as you will see, I don't have this issue myself. But I think they are amazing. I think he is an incredibly talented designer. And I think what he does so well is that you can bring your own aesthetic to his patterns and create something which absolutely fits well within your wardrobe and becomes incredibly wearable pieces. I think a lot of the times the samples are knitted in very vibrant and I think very beautiful colours. But I think some people can't imagine, because the colour choices are so bold, I think sometimes people struggle to imagine what that could look like in neutrals or in more muted shades, or shades that are perhaps more complementary for to one another, rather than these very sort of bold pops. But I would really, really encourage you to, explore these shawl shapes that he creates, and the wonderful stitch patterns that he explores, because I really do think he's an absolute artistic genius, and I think he's giving us the tools that we can use to create real masterpieces for ourselves. So that's my thoughts on Stephen West, but we will find out more about that because I have more of a Stephen West patterns to show you. I would also say that I think this Woollen Vine yarn is the most I've ever spent on one skein. And that's not to do with Woollen Vine. I mean, it is beautiful, hand-dyed, gorgeous yarn. And it was absolutely perfect for the project, and I took a long time to cultivate this fade. In fact, I bought this Silver Fox in the pewter from Loop London when I was down for that trip that I mentioned just before. And then, so that would have been in the summertime, and then I picked up the variegated yarn at the Loch Ness Knit Fest, a knitting festival that happened in Inverness. And then I ordered this this dark green from Woollen Vine to be sent over from New York. And because of that, the shipping plus the customs plus the cost of a hand-dyed skein of yarn ended up making it a very pricey purchase. And I think, like I say, the most I've ever spent on one single skein. But that said, I knew it was the perfect one. I knew it was going to be, the yarn that completed this particular shawl project, and so it was worth taking the time, putting together a fade that I really was going to enjoy knitting and wearing. I will just show you a little bit about the fade because, gosh, that's really warm. Because you might be able to see where I've started to stripe my colours in. You can see here when I've started to introduce the green, and I think in this instance what I've done is I've just done one row and then the next in the other yarn, and just alternated until I've used up the last of the first colour and fully moved into the second, and then given myself a period of rows here where it's just that one colour, and then started to stripe in the next. I would say I've probably become a little bit more sophisticated about my fading now. I think if you were to look at my Ravelry projects and look up the soiree sweater, that's a sweater that I knit in Nutiden, and I marled it and I created a fade, and I made a much more complex fade, and I think it was actually more sophisticated, I would say, than what I did here. That said, I think the yarn choice really saves me, and I think it's beautiful. So there we go, that's the Garter Goodness. Remember that, because you will see another one of those just shortly. But before we get to that one, it's another Stephen West one. So This is the first Stephen West mystery knit along that I ever did. It's called Starflake. I was really fascinated. Again, like I say, he's such a brilliant designer, so I really wanted to see what his projects would look like knit up in a much more neutral palette and also using woolly wool. So this is Snaildon that I picked up. I think I picked it up from Perth Festival of Yarn, from Midwinter Yarns, which is a yarn company here in Scotland that specialises in Scandinavian, Swedish, and I think she's got some Lithuanian linen as well now. So I always love to see her booth at festivals because the yarn is always so completely yummy. But this is the Snaildon, which is a 4-ply, and I just absolutely loved it. It was so much fun to do. I actually knitted part of this on our last trip outside of the UK. We went to The Hague, and I popped into Stephen and Penelope in Amsterdam while I was there, and they were all working on this also at that particular point in time. So the mystery knit-alongs, basically, if you've never participated in one, all it is that you do not know what it is that you're going to be knitting beforehand. You know it's going to be a shawl, you don't know the shape, you don't know the arrangement of colours or the stitch patterns or anything like that. You will generally get some advice on choosing colours, and there are, well, certainly with the Stephen West patterns, there's always a lot of kits released, so you'll be able to get an idea of what colours might work together, like how many light colours and dark colours. And this was an easier one to put together because you were only using 2 colours. So I went for light grey and dark grey, and with the mystery knit along, the clues are released 1 week after another. Well, certainly in the Stephen West ones anyway. Sometimes you'll get a surprise clue that's kind of thrown in, but really it's normally a weekly schedule. I think the first clue for this was this modular knitted star shape at the centre. So basically you're knitting a parallelogram and then picking up your stitches and then knitting your second parallelogram in a different colour, and so forth until you end up with the star shape. And then you had to pick up your stitches all around the star and knit these garter and stockinette chevrons. And then we moved on to the brioche. I do love a bit of brioche, and brioche in rustic yarn is just a complete delight. Like, look at that. That's on one side and that's on the other. Isn't it glorious? And then we had some short row garter ridges, and then we had this wonderful eyelet section, and then we had a garter border and the world's longest striped I-cord. If you've never done a striped I-cord, when it is done over this period of this many stitches, trust me, it is a labour of love. Still going. Here we go. So it was, I loved this pattern. I loved knitting it. I would say after having knitted it, I wore it a huge amount. I have a grey wool coat that I really enjoy wearing, and I would wear it with this. I latterly, like certainly in the last couple of years, my husband has really commandeered this one because it's such a warm and cozy one, and when he's working late at night, it really does keep him warm. But it's such a dramatic piece, such a dramatic shawl, and I love it because, you know, to offset that drama, I've got it in these quite neutral tones. So it's an enormously fun knit. I really enjoyed it. The different stitch patterns really kind of keep you going the whole way through. I really love the concept of starting with like a modular piece in the center and then building out from there. That was a lot of fun, and like I say, the striped I-cord was a labour of love, but it was so worth it because look how beautifully it complements the other parts of the shawl, but also it's really it really kind of, you know, deserves its place in the fabric. So there we go. That is the Star Flake, and it was the Mystery Knit Along. So it must have been 2019's Mystery Knit Along by Stephen West, and it's in Snaildon yarn, which I got from Midwinter. Oh my goodness. Well, the next shawl that I have for you is the one shawl here that I have not knitted. So I can't tell you too much about the yarn, and I can't tell you anything. Actually, I can't tell you anything about yarn, and I can't tell you anything about the pattern. But what I can tell you something about is the knitter. And I can also tell you how I wear it as well. So this is, you see it, it's a black. Oh, wow. This is a black shawl which my grandma knitted for when she was going out to the dances with my granddad. And she gave it to me, and I love to wear it. I think it's very dramatic. It's not showing up well on the camera just now at all, but there you go. I'll blow out a little bit, but you'll see that it's this all over lace mesh pattern. It's a triangular shaped shawl, and it's got these fabulous long tassels. It's I suppose it's a kind of a thicker weight. Is it thicker? I would say maybe it's a DK. Maybe a DK weight yarn. So it's a little bit heavier weight, so heavyweight lace. It's very warm and cozy, and every time I wear it, I think of my grandma. My grandma is the one who taught me how to knit. I don't remember learning, and she doesn't remember teaching me, but we both know it happened. I cannot remember not knowing what to do with needles and yarn in my hands, and I would say that's down to her. So it's a very much loved piece. Like I say, because it's the DK weight and it is the triangular shape that we've been showing you. There you go. I'm going to move out so you can see a little bit better. There we go. And it has this really cool increase. Can you see that? Here we are. I tend to wear it like this. So I bring both the sides around, and then I'm just going to reach over here. I'm going to creak because of this floorboard. Oh, and now I've dropped it. There we go. I have one of these, which is basically just like a leather bracelet. Yeah, and you can use any bracelet for this, like any bangle. Like you can go to a charity shop or a thrift shop and pick up some wooden or some plastic bangles, or and you can do this. But basically, I open up the cuff and I pass it round, and then I fasten the cuff. Of course, now I can't see what I'm doing. There we go. And what that just does is it just holds it in place. So the shawl isn't always falling off. It's really easy to keep a hold of it. And also it means I don't lose it. It doesn't fall off on the bus or anything like that. It stays put. So I quite often wear this particular shawl with the shawl cuff because it's a special shawl for me. I don't want to lose it, and also I think it looks quite cool with this shawl cuff on it. You could get like a black one, and but I quite like the contrast of the brown with the black. So that's how I wear it. So this is the one shawl on the shawl wall that wasn't knitted in the last 5 years and wasn't knitted by me. And like I say, I can't tell you anything about the design or the yarn, but what I can tell you is that it was knitted by my grandma, and it's a very special and much loved piece. So there we go. That's the exception, the exceptional one. Okay, so what do we have next? Oh, we have this one. So this is Seriously Holy, which is another pattern by Stephen West. It is a beautiful brioche pattern. And this is actually the third Seriously Holy that I've knitted. I knitted another two, which were sent across to the US to friends over there. And after having knitted that, I decided I really wanted one for myself. My mum and I we normally do a yarn advent for each other each year. We didn't do one last year because we'd both just moved houses and everything was a little bit chaotic. So we gave 2021 a miss, but I imagine we'll be doing it again this year. But in one of my advents, my mum gave me this fabulous gradient yarn by Freya's Fibres, and this is in the Aztec Gold colorway. I think this was a light fingering or a heavy lace weight, and I have paired it with Black Drops Brushed Alpaca. Again, I'm completely blowing out. There we go. So yes, I've paired it with this kind of Drops Brushed Alpaca, which you can see there. So it's this really fluffy yarn and this beautiful gradient moving from black through to olive greens and then through into kind of really quite a vibrant yellow at the end there. It's such a fun knit. It's again one of these really interesting shawl shapes that's created by these brioche increases, and these are very kind of exaggerated brioche increases. So you can see the first one here, and I think you're getting about eight ribs, 8 brioche stitches off of each increase, and that kind of then just really pushes the fabric out to create this beautiful shape. And I think it actually looks incredibly organic. It's like some kind of umbelliferous plant, or perhaps a current of water, like in a stream moving around pebbles. Or I really love the. In fact, I saw somebody else's version of this shawl just last week, and it made me want to do another one again. I would say that it is a lot of knitting, and that this is the Seriously Holy that I did before this one was the one where I switched throwing my brioche knits and instead taught myself how to do continental brioche knits, because I was finding bringing the yarn forward for each one of the brioche knits to throw had then created, it was a repetitive action with this finger, and it was then creating issues with this part of my wrist, which was then creating an issue with my forearm, and so it was really getting very painful. And so I taught myself how to do the brioche knits continental, and that allowed this finger a little bit of a break. So, and now I always do my brioche knits continental, and I do brioche pearls throwing. So this is the design that I learned that on, but not the shawl. So yes, like I say, it looks fantastic. I feel it's quite a bold statement piece without being too too in your face. But I love the black and the yellow together. I think they really pop, and it's very easy to wear this like I'm wearing at the moment with a plain black dress, and really allow this to be the standout feature. The Drops Brushed Alpaca is one that I've used quite a lot in a variety of different shawls, not all of which I'm going to show you today. I do have more shawls which are not currently on the shawl wall, so maybe I'll need to do the shawl wall part 2. But I have used the the brushed alpaca quite extensively, and I do find that it makes a really lovely alternative to some of the more expensive Suri alpaca options that are sometimes recommended for a pattern. I find that this Drops brushed alpaca stands in pretty well for those. So if you want to try and reduce the amount of money on these particular pieces. So there we go, that's Seriously Holy by Stephen West in Freya's Fibres Aztec Gold Gradient and in the Drops brushed alpaca in black. Okay, next one. It's another Stephen West. This is the Striped S-Jan. This is a pattern, again, this uses up some of the Advent yarn that I received from my mum. This is, again, I think this is BC Garn, but this is their baby alpaca. And it is the softest yarn you could possibly imagine. Now, the pattern, if you look at the pattern, it doesn't really look like this. So I have absolutely played with the colours of the yarns that I had. So obviously I had a light green, this darker green. I had this beautiful sort of orangey, light orange, and this kind of darker red. And then I also had this very pale purple and a darker purple, darker red. So I really wanted to use all of those colours, so I decided to stripe them and to explore the different stripes in different sections. And then my mum actually made this one before I did, and in her version she held her silk, because you're supposed to just use a strand of silk mohair for this lace section, but she decided that she was going to hold a strand of single ply lace weight merino with her silk mohair to give that lace section a bit more body, you know, to create a bit more of a solid fabric. So I decided I would do the same, and I used Cowgirl Blues, and it was a very kind of soft peachy, see if you can see it, kind of like a soft peachy shade, and I held it with a skein of Ching fibre kid silk mohair in the colourway Punjab, which is this really fun colourway with lots of mossy greens, pops of highlighter yellow and neon pink, and it was such a fun colourway there's even some blue there as well. It was such a fun colourway to work with, and I really enjoyed the impact that adding in that second strand of the single ply lace merino then really created, and this really does feel like a statement piece. What I will say is that if the striped I-cord on the Starflake was a labour of love, I don't even know how we describe the border on the striped S-Jan. I think at one point towards the very end you have over 1,000 stitches on the needle. That's my warning. But the payoff is huge, because it is genuinely exquisite, and it always catches people's eye. I always get people complimenting me on this. I think it's an incredibly organic shawl. This one reminds me a bit of like some kind of exotic sea creature. Isn't it fabulous? Like a big piece of coral, or I don't know. Definitely very organic. But when I wear it, again, because it's this baby alpaca, it is the softest that you could possibly imagine. And then we've got this fabulous border, which can we say statement piece? and because it's such a long crescent shape, this is not going to come off your shoulders accidentally. You can, of course, put the cuff on that as well if you wanted to, and it looks really nice actually. But it's not as necessary. This is not gonna slip off. This is actually gonna really hold to your shoulders. But look at that. Ugh. I would absolutely knit another one of these. I think if you have a really beautiful skein of hand-dyed mohair that's variegated that you absolutely love but don't know what to do with, then this could be a pattern that would allow you to really showcase it. And you can choose yarn that is relatively more, a commercial yarn that's more expensive. I really like pairing up hand-dyed yarn with commercial yarn, because it allows me to really make the most of like an individual skein, and but then I also don't have to worry about things like alternating skeins through the body of a garment if the hand dyed yarn is the yoke colour work, or if it is the lace in the border. So there we go. This is striped S-Jan. I like to wear this. I've got a dark green long cardigan that I like to wear underneath with this one. But again, because it's so many different colours, it's actually really easy to wear with lots of things in my wardrobe. And I would say that's another benefit of the Stephen West patterns, is there is an opportunity to add in lots of different colours. And because of that, you'd start to find that it goes with lots of things in your wardrobe, as long as you choose colours that are already in your wardrobe. Okay, so we're getting there. Next one is this one. If you have watched my podcast, my regular podcast, then you will recognise this already. But this is the Half and Half Triangles wrap. Lots and lots and lots of people have knitted this now. The wonderful women of Caddy Jack's Knits, Caitlin and Jackie, did a knit along which went for about a year, I think. The Half and Half Triangle wrap pattern is a free pattern by Purl Soho, and it uses the yarn Linen Quill, which is a Purl Soho yarn. But that's not very easy for me to get over here in Scotland. Again, it would incur quite a lot of shipping and customs. So instead I went for an alternative, and I decided I was going to knit mine using Holst Super Soft. So this feels very familiar. This is Sweet Pea and this is Cinnamon. I love Holst Super Soft because of the wonderful heathered colourways. They're really very pretty. I followed the pattern other than I did German short rows instead of wrap and turns, and I slipped, let me see, where is it? On the other side, of course. I slipped the last stitch, like I've mentioned, on the end of each of the edge row, to create this smooth edge without the garter bumps. So when I first finished this, I thought it was far too big and I would probably never wear it. How wrong was I? I wear this all the time. I love to wear it in the evenings, particularly when I'm watching the television, because it is just so wonderfully warm. The Holst Super Soft is really light. Yeah, but it's like a proper woolly wool, so it's incredibly cozy. I love the little contrast colour together. You can really allow that to pop. And I particularly wear this a lot through the winter time because it is a lot of fabric. But it's a lot of thin fabric. You can see this. You can see my hand behind it. Yeah. So it's because it's knitted at this particular gauge. There's a lot of fine fabric, and that means it's perfect for layering. But I just absolutely love this piece and wear it just an awful lot. Isn't that just so pretty? I love this sweet pea with this cinnamon shade. I just, yeah. And look at the drape of it. Oh, I could just, oh. I love my shawls. So there we go. That's the Pearl Soho in the Whole Super Soft. Whole Super Soft, when you get it, you might be surprised at how fine weight it is. It does still have its spinning oil and some excess dye in it, so a lot of that will come out in the wash when you do your washing before blocking. But once it dries, it really puffs up. Yeah, the fibres really bloom, and so you end up with a slightly thicker weight yarn than the one that you knitted with. So yes, don't be too put off by that. People quite often ask me if I knitted my Whole Super Soft double. I did not. I held it single, and I used the needle size recommended in the pattern, and I did block it, and it did end up very large. But I really love blocked garter because I think it's very elegant and it drapes really beautifully. So there we go. That's the enormous half and half triangles wrap. It's just so lovely. Don't mind me. Next one. Oh, it is another garter goodness. This is another La Bien-Aimée yarn. So I think this first colour here was it called Arya? And then I had some High Garden and some Dawn. So I had 3 skeins. So I had 2 skeins of single ply merino and 1 skein of kid silk. And again, I mean, La Bien-Aimé's kid silk mohair is absolutely exquisite. It is on the pricier side. There is a very high silk content, and it is a very fine mohair, so you get more meterage than you would on other brands' mohairs. So that is something to keep in mind. You do get quite a lot of bang for your buck, but it is on the pricier side. But this yarn was given to me by my mum as a gift when I went over and stayed with her in France one time, and I was trying to decide what project I wanted to do, and I decided I really wanted the comfort of knitting another garter goodness, but that required 4 skeins and I had 3 skeins. So we went to My Little My, the local yarn shop in Cognac, and I got a colourway called, I think it was called Little Miss, and it was a Tôt le Matin skein, and it completed the fade so perfectly. And as I said, I think I learned how to do fading in a little bit more sophisticated way, and I think that is demonstrated by this pattern, by this shawl, because my fade is, I will say it, my fade is pretty fabulous. And I decided, unlike in the pattern, to stripe in my mohair to create this border, and then I cast off using the High Garden in the single ply mohair. And this was one of those shawls or one of those projects where you win at Yarn Chicken and you just feel on top of the world, because the yarn that I had left after this enormous I-cord, and as I'm knitting it, I'm running out of more and more yarn. I'm thinking I'm not going to get to the end of this, and I was already thinking I'm going to have to rip this back and come up with an alternative cast off. And when I finished off the very end of the I-cord, I had a piece of yarn that length. So that was a relief. That doesn't happen very often, but I certainly, so I think of this as a lucky shawl. I wear this a lot. I love wearing this in the summertime. I have a kind of a dusky pink raincoat that I really like to wear, and I have a pair of ballet flats that are in the same colour, and I like to, in fact I love to wear it with this black dress. So this dusky pink paired with the black dress and the light pink raincoat and ballet flats, I think is a really beautiful combination, and makes me feel very spring-like. Actually, it's a nice one to wear for just now when we are starting to see some of those spring flowers coming up, but it's still actually quite cold. So we need kind of like a heavier weight shawl. We're not quite ready for all of those lovely lacy shawls that I showed you at the beginning, but we do still want to have something of spring about us, and for me this shawl really fits that bill. And I think it also gives you an idea of just how different one design can be when you switch the colours up. So let's see if I can reach just about. There we go. So this was the original one that I knitted, and this is the second one that I knitted. So both really beautiful pieces. I really love both of them. I probably wear this one more, I would say, than I wear the other one, but yeah, I really love them both. So there we go. That's the Garter Goodness, another one by Stephen West in yarn by La Bien-Aimée and Tola Matin, done as a fade. So there we go with the mohair border. We're getting there. I keep saying that. We've still got lots to go. But I have more and more clear wall behind me now, so that's something. This is another Stephen West. It is Purl Break, but it probably doesn't look like any Purl Break you have perhaps seen before. This uses a really lovely light fingering, or heavy lace weight. It's 600 meters to 100 grams. Single ply merino by the Walk collection. And this is in the colourway Koi. And I've paired it up with this rust coloured drops brushed alpaca, the kind that I mentioned just before, so you can see. So I follow, this is a different yarn weight than the pattern recommends, certainly. And it kind of looks like a purl break to a point, up to probably there. And then it starts to, then I went off-piste. Then I did something a bit different. So I decided that I wanted some brioche. I had really enjoyed doing the Seriously Holy. So I was influenced by that, but I wasn't doing any decreases or anything. I was just creating this fabric that was kind of flaring out. You can see from each one of these increases, we've got about six brioche knits coming out from each one, and I just spaced them throughout the fabric for the border. And what it did, and I suppose you never really know if these things are going to work out. It's part of a creative experiment, really, isn't it? But what it did was it kind of created what looks to me like a ruffle, like a brioche ruffle. This is a lovely, again, a very light and easy to wear shawl. And with all of this wonderful brioche fabric around the edging, do you know, I do kind of feel a bit like a koi fish. Do you remember those wonderful, I think it's in Disney's Fantasia, the first Fantasia, there's a wonderful animation of like a fish with all of its wonderful fins and the transparency of it as its tail moves, and so that's what that reminds me of. These feel like fins. But there's a lot of this kind of fluffy fabric. It's an incredibly light weight. As I said, that I only used one skein of the light fingering weight, the Watt collection. So that's 100 grams. Maybe used 100 grams of the other one, maybe a little bit more, but maybe a bit less. It's a very, very lightweight shawl, but because of the alpaca content in it, again, it has a warmth to it, and a kind of a light frothiness. It's a really fun and lovely piece to wear. Goes really beautifully with denim, I think. So I quite like to wear this with my jeans. So there we go. I think it's a good example of how to use a pattern that you like the start of, and then to allow yourself a little bit of creative license as you go, so that you can start to think of designs as a template for you to be able to explore whatever your creative heart desires. So there we go. That's the Pearl Break with an improvised brioche border by Stephen West. Ready for another Stephen West? It's a lot of Stephen West here, hey? And there's more to come. This is the Fantastitch. Fantastitch? I never know how to say this. Fantastitch. Fantastitch. Anyway, that's what it is. It uses 7 colours. It's a lot of different colours to explore. I used some Ching Fibre High Twist BFL in this peachy colour and in this gingerbread colour. I then had some BC Garn, again this lovely baby alpaca in this dark grey and in this marled grey. And I had some Bordeaux. This is the Ito Sensei. This fantastic kind of watermelon shade here of mohair, and that's from Mohair de Ferme de France. And this is Drops Kid Silk Mohair in their pink base. So those are the colours that I chose to go together. There, sorry, I had a panic there. I thought there was a hole. There's not. It's an intentional one. It's an eyelet. That's fine. It's a big shawl, kind of like an elongated semicircular shawl. So you're increasing on the edges, and then you're increasing across the full shawl at certain points. Oh, I'll get that one in a second. And it's a huge amount of fun because of all of these different stitch techniques that you're doing, and then you're getting to see how all of your colours play together. I think when this originally came out, I didn't get it, and I didn't really understand the design, and I wasn't really sure about it for me. But when I was moving house, I needed something that really last year. I really needed something that was going to capture my attention and was going to feel like fun on my needles, and this looked like it was going to be fun on my needles. So I brought out my stash. I started playing with different colours together and ended up putting together this palette, which somebody once described as a chocolate box colourways, and I kind of think they were onto something there. I didn't think that this shawl would be very wearable. How wrong was I? I think this is an incredibly well-worn shawl. In fact, it started to bobble because I wear it so often. I'm not sure I've got any shawls that have started to bobble because of overuse. But there we go. I think this is the one that is. And it's because it's so easy to put on and match it with things in my wardrobe. So I have things that are this peachy pink. I have things that are this hot pink. I have things that are caramel brown. I have things which are light grey or dark grey. I have things which are orange. It's one of these pieces that look nice with denim as well. And it looks lovely with black. Or I've yet to find an outfit it doesn't go with. So it really has become like a go-to piece. And actually, once you put it on, the eye isn't drawn to the kind of the segments of colour and texture and stitch. It's just creating like an overall an overall look, and I really, really love it. I can highly recommend this pattern if you're looking for something that's really going to delight you and is going to, if you need some joy, I think you should cast this one on for yourself. So there we go. This is a Fantastitch by Stephen West in lots of different yarns and is incredibly well loved by me. Again, this is a nice one to wear with that pale pink raincoat. So the one that fell on the floor is not a Stephen West one, but it is one that you've seen it before already, because it is another one of these second knits, and this is my second half and half triangle. It's knitted in linen quill, which is the yarn that is recommended. This was a yarn that was sent to me as a gift by my lovely friend Jackie, and she asked me to choose colours, and these are the colours that I chose. As I showed you my there it is, this one, this hipster shawl is one that I quite often wear in the summer, and I like to pair it with my hot coral sundresses, and I've got a few of them. And I've also got some linen tops that are in this really kind of bright coral shade, like this bright flamingo here. For me, that absolutely sings of summer, these hot colours together, but they're kind of clashy, but I really, really love that. So I decided that this particular half and half wrap would have these two colours together, because it would remind me of summer. And you know, sometimes you can wear these kind of pieces in the summertime in Scotland, because sometimes it's really not that warm, but generally this is more of a, you know, an autumn, spring, winter piece. All the other seasons. But it means that I get to carry a bit of summer with me throughout the rest of the year. And I think particularly when we're moving through kind of the darker months and the colder months, having this kind of real pop of hot summer is it feels like a delight to me. So the colours are bright flamingo and yellow turmeric, and they just make me so happy. I did exactly the same as I did with the previous one, which was I did German short rows and I slipped the last stitch, just to give you an idea of how it looks. The linen quill was really quite different to knit with compared to the whole Super Soft. It's an entirely different blend. So the whole Super Soft is 50% Shetland and 50% merino, whereas this is a Highland wool linen alpaca blend. So the alpaca really lends to the drape, which you can see here. The merino creates that real sort of bounce, which you do get in the whole Super Soft, I think. But then you've got this fabulous linen, which I think also contributes towards the drape, but then also creates this really interesting texture within the fabric, because you've got these kind of longer pieces of the plant fibre. So it's such a beautiful, soft, bouncy, drapey yarn. You know, it's like it ticks like all the boxes, and the saturation of the dye is just exquisite and so much fun. And they have so many colours to choose from, so you can really play to your heart's content with putting together colourways. It is a big knit. Hey, there's a lot of knitting in this, and you're going. So it is, I really like to have, in fact I've got another one on the needles, which is another whole Super Soft one. But I like to have one on the needles just so that it's kind of in the background. You're never caught short in between projects, or you need something quick to grab on your way out the door because you're going to be on a train, or you know, you're going to be doing something that you need something to occupy you. Then that's the project that I grab for, because it is just straightforward garter with just a very small amount of work on either end to do either the short row or slip the last stitch and start the next row. So it is good night knitting actually. But there we go. This is my second half and half triangle wrap, and it's in the Linen Quill by Purl Soho. And it is, I'll just show you on the other side as well so you can see. But it's so much fun just having this kind of extra pop of colour, so you can really play with that in your own colour choices. So there we go. Oh, three more to go. And like I said, this isn't even all of them. There are more. I will need to do a second one. This is another mystery knit along. This was by Joji Locatelli. This is the starting point. It was I think it was the first mystery knit along that she ever did. I'm not even sure if she's done another one. But it's a long wrap. Here we go. And it was you cast on at this end, and you're basically knitting a triangle by increasing, and then it's just basically one long chevron, isn't it? And then you would cast on for the other end, and then so you're replicating the stitches on either end, so you are working towards the center with two ends until you get into the middle, and you've got these 2 points coming into a center point. Let me show you, which is there. Now you can sew up the hole, but really it doesn't really make much difference. And then you're creating these 2 triangles on either side. Now, it was a big knit. I mean, it's 5 skeins of yarn. And again, she did give us information on how to choose our colours. My friend Jen and I decided that we would try and dye some colourways up for this particular project. So I think we dyed a very strong yellow, a dark purple, a mid purple, a light purple, and a speckle of yellow and purple. And that's what I knitted this up in. But I found that with the colours that I had dyed up and knitted, it didn't work in my wardrobe at all. It didn't go with anything else. The contrast was too great between the different shades, and I always kind of felt like I looked like the Grand High Priestess of Cadbury's. Cadbury's Caramel. It was those colours. So it was a shame because it was such a lot of knitting and it was a beautiful design, but it just wasn't getting anywhere. So I went back to Jen and we decided that we'd pop this in a big pot of vermilion acid dye. And if it was a disaster, it was a disaster, and it would dye all black. And I would still get more wear out of it than what I was getting. So that's what we did, and actually it wasn't a disaster. It actually kind of felt like a huge success because each one of the colourways took the vermilion dye differently. So this is obviously the dark purple here. This was the yellow. This was the mid purple. I think this might be the speckle here. But yes, it created a much more tonal effect. And so much so, again, this is a very, very well worn piece for me. It is basically like a big scarf. So I generally wear it like this, but I have also worn it like this to pull it through like that. Or you can also double it over and wear it over your shoulders. So it is, it's just a big swathe of fabric. So it's really up to you how you choose to wear it. But there we go. You can also wear it like that. You can add like a shawl pin or something too. So there we go. That's the starting point, which is Joji Locatelli. It was her MCAL. It was knitted up in my own hand-dyed yarn, which I think was a BFL, and I think it was a superwash BFL, which I bought by mistake because I wanted to get the non-superwash. But that's okay. I did also really want to experiment with BFL, and this actually it confirmed my continuing love affair with BFL, Blueface Leicester, as a beautiful fibre to knit with. What I would say is that my dye job was not entirely consistent because it is a huge shawl and we were using a large pot to dye in, and with that amount of skein, 5 skeins, it was probably too big for the pot, and so the dye didn't get an opportunity to circulate around the shawl as much as it might have otherwise. But you really don't notice that when you're wearing it at all. Again, it's one of those things that you could kind of get yourself hung up on if you were just going to stare at it flat, but actually that's not how it gets worn, and that's not how you live with it. So as it is, I never noticed that part, and it just becomes an overall beautiful piece. But if you are interested in over dyeing, you should probably be aware of that, and I think you should also hold the possibility that if it all goes horribly wrong, that you can always dye it black, and perhaps that will still be an improvement. So but yes, I was really glad that I did that, and like I say, I wear it so often now, and it's no longer a piece that's sitting not being worn in my wardrobe. 2 last shawls. This one here is the most recent Stephen West mystery knit along. It is shawlography. If you watch knitting podcasts in general, then you've probably seen an awful lot of these. These colours are influenced by a knitting bag that I inherited from my gran, and it kind of had this sort of Art Deco pattern on it that used these colours. So I decided that I would use them in this particular shawl and see how they played together in a different pattern. These are all whole super soft, apart from this Kid Silk Mohair, which is again from Qing Fibre, which I've held together with the whole super soft in certain places in the project. So again, it was released piece by piece. We didn't know what it was going to look like in the end. There's a lot of people have improvised a different border. I actually really love the border. I think it's beautiful. I decided to add some tassels because I thought that would be a fun way to use up some more of my yarn, and also to showcase again the lovely hand-dyed mohair that I added in. I think the only other modification that I did was I switched the main colour for the brioche so that it would pop a little bit more, which it did. The wonderful thing about Stephen West Mystery Knit-alongs is they will always introduce you to new textures, new techniques that you've not done before. So if you want to learn something new, then definitely go for the next Mystery Knit-along. He always does very detailed instructions, and they're always very easy to follow, and I think really help to make sense of the written instructions. So, and then of course there's just the fun of being part of a community that is all working on the same design but in vastly different colour combinations. So you get to see the same piece, the same design in so many different forms. So I've actually worn this an awful lot. I have this colour here. This is called Brandy, and I bought a cone of brandy after having knitted this because I loved it so much. And I've knitted a jumper, the Fairy Bouquet by Joanna Ang, in this particular colour, held with Titicaca's Fiesta, which is another Holst base, and the two look really lovely together. So I'm actually really interested in exploring that a little bit more, because I also have a cone of this, which is Scarab, and I have a cone of this, which is Viola. And so I want to knit some more jumpers that are in the same colorways as some of my as some of my shawls. And my last one is also an example of that. And this was oh, it's not the last one. There's another one to go. It was hiding. Okay, second last one. This was the 2020, well, it's a 2020 MCAL, and it's Slip Stravaganza. Again, I used Whole Super Soft. I absolutely love the colours of this. And again, I've paired it with a Mohair Dare of Ching Fibre, and this was the same colourway, that Punjabi. I had some left over, I think, so I used up my leftovers in this project. Again, just how this man's mind works. I think this is one of the most stunning designs, truly, and I'm so pleased that I added in that mohair, because it really feels as though it featured it just beautifully. And again, I have this gorgeous shade of amethyst here. I have this on a cone as well, so I'll be able to knit myself a jumper, which I think will look lovely with it. And I've also got a cone of this, which I think is called Scots Pine. So that's really what I want to do over the next couple of years, actually, is to knit some jumpers up in these colourways so that they will complement the shawls and integrate them more into my wardrobe. So that's my plan. But yeah, again, if you go onto Instagram or even onto Ravelry and have a look at some of the projects, you will see just the wild variety of colours and just what an impact the different colours have on a design, and that you really have an opportunity to make something your own. Okay, last one. And this is my first ever brioche pattern. It is another Stephen West. This is the Excuse Me. This is the pattern that I taught myself brioche with. And I know there's been a lot of workshops, and there's a lot of support out there to learn. And, it is a different type of stitch, in the sense that you're creating kind of this double-sided fabric, but it's not difficult, and it really is, once you start doing it, it is very familiar, because you're just basically knitting and slipping stitches, or purling and slipping stitches. So if you can purl, if you can knit, if you can slip, if you can do a yarn over, then you can do brioche, honestly. So it did take me a little while, because particularly at the beginning, if you've never done brioche before, starting with the brioche tab cast on is a difficult thing. So I don't particularly recommend that you follow my lead with this, but if you do have some basic understanding of brioche, then this could be an earlier brioche project, certainly. And if I can figure it out, you can totally figure it out too. So yes, started with the brioche tab, and then you're creating this great big swathe of fabric. And in fact, I was influenced to cast this on by Kirsten of Voolenvine, because she used I think she held her black colourway, which I think is called Grim, and then she used up lots and lots of leftovers for the second colour, and it just looked absolutely fabulous. This yarn is yarn that I picked up in a charity shop on Morningside Road, and it was hand dyed alpaca silk, and it was sold, I think, for a ridiculous price. Oh dear, just noticed a pool in it, so I'll need to sort that out. So that'll just get woven back in, so I will do that afterwards. It's important to keep on top of these things and to make sure that your shawls are in good shape. So there we go. This is it was a real bargain find, and this is again a very highly worn shawl for me because of the alpaca silk. It's very comfortable to wear. It's an easy piece to throw on. It is a slightly warmer weight, a heavier weight for colder weather. So if you want something just to snuggle with as well, oh dear, that pulled yarn there. Then it's a lovely one to explore, and I think it would be a great stash buster too. So I have always been tempted to cast on another one, and use up some of my scraps while just holding one color consistent, and then start striping in other colors. It would be relatively simple to do that. But there we go. This is the Excuse Me by Stephen West, and perhaps it's wholly appropriate then that we are finishing with the Stephen West pattern because there were so many of them. So, or maybe it was just inevitable. But anyway, that was my wall of shawls, my shawl wall. I will have to do another one because I have not shown you, for example, the, which ones? The Lune by Natasha Hornby, the Painting Bricks by Stephen West. There's that beautiful point shawl, which is brioche lace by Julie Knits in Paris, Julie Dubrow. So I do have, and then I've got a couple of other shawls, which one, the Stephen West Quadrangle Spires, is being used as a throw in the office in the other room, and the Stephen West Melting Mirage is actually a wall hanging in my lounge. So so there are other shawls around that I haven't shown you. Oh, and then there's the Fleur as well by Espace Tricot, which is a beautiful one too. So yeah, there are I do have more shawls, but I think we are over an hour and a half, so I think we will leave that there, and I will start the process of hanging these all back up again. And the next episode will probably be in a couple of weeks' time, and that will probably be a bit more of a regular episode, and I will share with you what I've been working on and what I've finished and what I've been casting on. But in the meantime, I'm going to release you into your day, and hopefully you feel inspired by all of this beautiful colour and texture and the possibilities that are available to us with a very basic shawl shape. So, okay, my darlings, you take good care, and I'll speak to you soon.